All right, now let's take some fan questions. Reminder to please ask a question, no statements, don't ask to take a selfie, please ask a question.
Hi. Okay.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Russell Thung, and I'm so excited to be here.
Yay!
This question is for the producers and the cast. What were some things that you were excited to do or get to do, or you have already done, that you normally wouldn't get to do on a traditional broadcast network television show?
I mean, I know mine off the bat, and it's playing with fire. So, like, I don't know any young kid who doesn't want to be like a superhero when he grows up.
Yeah.
And the fact that I got to play and manipulate with fire on this show so often was an absolute dream come true. It kind of makes me sound like a pyromaniac right now, which I'm not, but it was just super fun.
I appreciated that Rose was able to have a potty mouth, because Rose to me seemed like she should have a potty mouth. And then, you know, on a less sort of glib note, when you are working in broadcast television, if you're putting a show on, say, for example, the CW, it has to run at like 41 minutes and 12 seconds, period. Like not 41:10, not 41:15, like 41:12. And I can't tell you over hundreds of episodes of television how many episodes that I felt were perfect at 2 minutes over, 10 minutes over, 4 minutes over, even 20 seconds over. And to get it ready for air, I had to go in and cut stuff out. And as Marguerite likes to say, when you're cutting stuff out, you're cutting out that big, beautiful shot that you really loved, because it's not advancing the story. You're cutting out the air and the breath that gives the audience time to react to the story that they're experiencing. You're just saying, okay, thank you, move on to the next scene. And we did okay, you know, we told really good stories, but there are versions of every episode, not every, but many episodes of Vampire Diaries that were really extraordinary, but 8 to 12 minutes long, and there's just no freedom there. And here on streaming, we have all that freedom. We don't take advantage of it. No. We don't just write long episodes because we can. Our episodes are still, you know, under 50 minutes, more or less, but it's just, you get to keep the stuff that works and that you're proud of, and you don't have to be forced to slice and dice.
Yeah, it's a luxury, and it makes it better.
Thank you for the question.
Thank you.
Look at this.
Wow.
That's a great
that outfit, unbelievable. I'm obsessed.
Thank you so much. In the first Vampire Diaries book, the politics is very much in the background until the end. Now that you're doing more court intrigue and bringing all that to the front, how is that going to affect the personal relationships between the characters and how we first meet them?
Oh, hi. Well,
go on, princess.
You
Resident political expert to my left.
You actually already saw how they meet, so we're sort of showing the story before. And we like to say, when we were talking about Rose and Lissa, what their backstory was, they met. You'll see when you see the whole episode where they met when they were 5, and Lissa says this line that Julie and I always tear up at because we're big babies, but where she's like, I remember seeing you standing all alone at Family Day.
Oh, don't make me
And it's like, your heart hurts. And these two young girls sort of like recognized each other and became bonded and were best friends. And so during all of that time, they also kind of lived in a bubble because Rose was able to be sort of taken in by the Dragomir family and their privilege and all of that. So she was a Dhampir and she was training, but she also didn't quite experience the Dhampir life in the way that Dhampir normally would. And Lissa was a pampered royal. So they're in a bubble. They don't know the world that they're in. So what we thought was really important was to show them
the bubble bursting.
Open their eyes, that bubble burst the day, when this crash happens, everything changes.
Yeah.
And what do they do about it? Because it just immediately propels them into the different worlds that they were born into. And then they have to decide what they want to do about it. And that's going to challenge them for the rest of, the seasons, all of them, I hope. So that's kind of our jumping off point. So it will push them. And we just wanted to see where they sprang from.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. We love your costume.
Love your costume too.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
50 Scarlet Witch.
So one thing I really, really enjoyed about the books was Lisa's struggle, like being discussed of like her mental health. Are we gonna see that in the show, like her struggles with mental health?
I don't know how much of this I can say, so I'm going to pass it over to Julie.
We live in that a little bit. We did make a decision not to have her past the pilot engage in much self-harm. So that's an element from the books that we decided to get rid of. We do kind of touch on it a little bit. You know, those of you who read the books know why Lissa has thoughts in her head that she can't explain. And the entire first season is about getting to the bottom of that, getting to the bottom of this so-called darkness, telling the mirroring story of other people that you might know from the book that went through the same thing. And I'm going to stop right there before the people who haven't read the books, you know, start to get annoyed. But the answer is a quiet yes.
Quiet, yes.
Thank you. Hi, for the actors, you said you read their books, so after reading the books, did that influence how you played your characters?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think, obviously, these characters are loved by so many, but the beauty of blueprint material like that is you get to see how people attach to these characters, what it is about them, their attributes, not so much in regards to their physicality, but their how they move, their gestures, their personality comes through in what they say, what don't they say. And these things are like all stuff that we all did our homework on, I believe, which brings us back to the essence point. It's kind of like the soul is in the books. So now, I know, let's get the shots out. The soul of the characters in the books, and these beautiful writers have just transcended that, and we get the opportunity to just colour that in a little bit, a sprinkle of ourselves to it, and see what makes these characters tick and what their thought process is, and hopefully you'll see that homework's been done, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the books are amazing too, so you can really see, I mean, through Rose's perspective, but at least for Lissa, like the way Rose would talk about Lissa and what were key elements of what Rose saw in Lissa or what made her kind of stand out. And I took those traits and really tried to incorporate them in my take on Lissa.
Yeah, it was kind of what these guys said because they said it so perfectly. But yeah, I think Julie said something pretty interesting. There's parts of the book or parts of the story that you don't get to see because it's from a different character's perspective.
Yeah.
It's not Rose. Like to me, when I read the part where Rose tells Christian that he shouldn't be with Lissa and he's too dangerous for her, and he goes off on his own without talking to her, it's like, what did he do during that time? Like, where did he go? How did he cope with that? How did he process that? And I think that changed how I kind of thought about him because I got to make those moments in my head while playing him as well.
You know, it's so interesting hearing you four talk, and it's really moving because what they are showing is how much they respect and appreciate the source material and how much work they put into absorbing it and wanting to celebrate it, which is how we feel. You know, I think the only person who read a Vampire Diaries book was Michael Trevino. And I think he finally said, like 8 years later, Tyler Lockwood says, yeah, it's because I knew you and Kevin were going to be on our flight to Vancouver, and I wanted to look smart to you and kiss a little ass.
Very nice.
So I think that's really lovely that you all have put that kind of thought and care into it.
It's really important for us to...
Feels like a respect thing as well,
Exactly,
right?
exactly. To keep the fans happy and myself happy as well with my initial love for the books. You know, and they're so supportive. Like, you guys are so supportive. We get so many messages and tweets and all of this stuff being like just so ready to accept what we're putting out, even though it might be a little bit different from the books, even though we might not look exactly the way the characters are described and that kind of stuff. But like, it's just this overwhelming wave of love and support, and like, thank you so much for that stuff. Like, it's so important to us, and it is a responsibility that we feel, and we just want to please you, and we want you to be happy with it.
And also, like, when you love a book so much, there's like a little bit of ownership that comes with it. Like, it's like your baby too, even though you didn't write it or anything. It's like, oh, but like, you know, and you get so attached to these characters, and that was super important for all of us, and we took that really seriously.
Rose and I are too similar. It's like,
They really are.
scary.
Yeah, they
gets
really,
me
really
into
are.
trouble. Also gets me out of trouble, but I mean, she was my favorite character, and even just as soon as the audition came, I was like, I know her. I know this bitch. She is. I am her. Let's go.
And that's the thing as well, like, just playing on that, your version of Rose helped me find my Dimitri, you know? Like, the Dimitri
Yeah.
box is formed through, like...
Likewise.
Yeah, yeah.
What Christian said, sorry, Christian, oh my God, so sorry.
Oh my God, we do this all the time.
Andre says all the time, is that there's a side of the story that you didn't see for Christian. What did he do in that moment? Like, don't forget, this love triangle. Dimitri's fallen in love with Rose just as much as she's fallen in love with him in the books. And I think our interpretation, I owe you a massive part of my work, you know? And you find that through the training, find that through different things, and you can't get that from a book. You can't really get that from the script. That's all lived experience.
Yeah,
and
we get a lot.
translates to the performance.
Like, particularly all of you guys, like, you're such talented actors. Sometimes I stand across from them and I just blank because I'm just watching them being like, wow, they're so pretty, they're so talented. And like,
Or she's
hey,
doing a
Cece,
TikTok.
time to move. Or I'm making a TikTok for you guys. But like, you guys are all, they're so talented and they're so generous. And what you always want to be doing is working with people, whatever your craft is, or your passion is, you always want to be working with people who are better than you because then they elevate what you're doing. And these guys elevate. I can see it in myself. I'll watch something back and be like, that's actually better work than I've been doing for the last 2 years of my life. And I have that to owe because, like, that was you, Danny. Like, she's on set and she's just giving me everything and she's crying because this is so sad and traumatized. And I'm like, okay, I can't cry too much because that's not the scene. But, like, you're just, all of you, you're just right there with me. And that's exactly what I needed. And it just made everything so much better.
But it's the same with you. Like, you have this ease to do everything, you know? And it's literally like Rose. It's like she works well, like almost like under pressure better. Like, it's the weirdest thing. And when you least expect it, she'll show up and like be a badass, like literally like Rose. And it's so interesting because our relationship as Cece and Danny, also, it's almost like they kind of bled together.
Oh, yeah,
like,
absolutely.
There would be moments where I don't even know how to explain it, but like I just knew that Cece needed a hug, like something so simple, like.
And then I burst into tears.
Yeah,
and like, I knew.
Yeah, and it would be like she would just, you know, kind of be in herself again, literally like Rose.
Yeah.
And kind of keep that to herself, and no one would really ask her anything or kind of be like, hey, you know. And it was just, I had to say nothing and just hug her, and we both just knew. And then there's a line in the show where I say Rose, and she just says, I know. And that's all we needed to say was, I know. And I was like, oh my God. And I was like, oh my God, that's low-key me and Cece. It was like, I didn't have to say anything. It was like, I know. Like, I know exactly what it is. And then she was crying, and I was like, okay, we can't cry right now. Like, we have to shoot this. Like, stop.
One more question? Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for questions.
I'm so sorry.
I wish we could do this all day. Believe me,